Let's start with the biggest problem in Greek mythology. And I mean literally, meet Typhon. If Greek mythology were a video game, Typhon would be the final boss. Not a boss, the boss. The thing all the other bosses warn you about. So remember Gaia, the earth itself, the mother of the Titans? Well, after the Titanomachy, she wasn't exactly thrilled with Zeus, because from her perspective, Zeus had just overthrown her Titan children. Now, here's something you'll notice throughout mythology. Nobody ever lets anything go, ever. A minor disagreement in Greek mythology becomes a multi-generational disaster. Someone gets offended, 300 years later, a monster appears. That's basically the pattern. So Gaia decides, you know what? I'm making a new monster. And what follows is one of the greatest overreactions in mythological history. Because Typhon isn't just a monster. Typhon is every monster combined. Some ancient writers described him as so tall his head scraped the stars. Others described hundreds of snake heads growing from his body. His eyes burned with fire. His voice sounded like every terrifying creature imaginable. Sometimes he roared, sometimes he hissed, sometimes he sounded like wild animals. Basically, Typhon was nature's way of saying, what if absolutely everything was terrifying at once? Now, normally, Zeus doesn't have problems. Zeus is the problem. Need rain? Ask Zeus. Need justice? Ask Zeus. Need lightning? Zeus already halfway throwing it. But Typhon was different. For the first time since becoming king, Zeus found himself facing something that might actually win, and that got everyone's attention. The fight between Zeus and Typhon was one of the biggest battles in mythology. Forget the Titanomachy for a second. This feels personal. Zeus versus one giant nightmare. Lightning fills the skies. Mountains collapse. The seas rage. Everything explodes. Imagine every disaster movie happening simultaneously. And that's basically what's going on here. Now let's take a step back for just a second and let's talk about Zeus's combat strategy. Because it never changes, ever. Every problem, every enemy, every situation. The answer is always the same: lightning. Imagine being one of the Olympians. Zeus, what's the plan? Lightning. What if that doesn't work? More lightning. What if, have you ever considered even more lightning? To be fair, it usually works. Okay, now here's my favorite part. According to some versions of this myth, the other Olympian gods see Typhon coming and immediately abandon ship. Not strategically retreat, not reposition, not regroup, leave, gone. They out of here. Some myths even claim they fled to Egypt disguised as animals, which means when the biggest threat in history showed up, half the gods turned into wildlife and disappeared. Imagine being Zeus. You're fighting the ultimate monster, you look around for backup, and Apollo has become a bird. Now here is where things get serious. Typhon doesn't just fight Zeus. He hurts Zeus badly. Some versions say that Typhon actually defeats him temporarily, which is almost unheard of. This is the king of the gods, the guy who defeated Kronos, the guy who defeated the Titans, the guy whose primary hobby is winning, and Typhon nearly takes him out. For a brief moment, Olympus is genuinely in danger. Now, fortunately for Zeus, Greek mythology loves a comeback story. Eventually, Zeus recovers. He gets his lightning back and starts unleashing enough electricity to power a continent. The battle resumes. Mountains crack. the sky burns, the earth shakes, and finally Typhon begins to lose. And eventually Zeus defeats Typhon. Now, depending on which version you read, Zeus buries Typhon beneath Mount Etna. Yes, the volcano, which means that every time Mount Etna erupts, the Greeks believed Typhon was still down there, trying to get out. Honestly, it's a much cooler explanation than tectonic plates. Now, if Typhon was the father of monsters, we need to talk about the mother. And somehow, she's almost as terrifying. Meet Echidna. Half woman, half giant snake, so already a concerning combination. But the real issue isn't Echidna herself. The issue is her children. Because Echidna and Typhon somehow became the most dangerous parents in mythology. Now, most family trees contain normal people, maybe a few odd relatives, not Echidna's. Let's look at her children. Cerberus, the Hydra, the Chimera, the Sphinx, the Nemean lion, several dragons, several giant snakes, and enough monsters to keep heroes employed for centuries. This isn't a family tree, it is a wanted poster. Now imagine being one of these kids' teacher. Mrs. Echidna, your son keeps turning people into stone. Oh yeah? Which son? That's a problem. The fascinating thing is how many famous monsters trace back to Echidna. She is essentially the source of every future hero's problems. Perseus, monster. Heracles, several monsters. Bellerophon, monster. Odysseus, monster. At some point, every Greek hero wakes up and discovers Echidna has once again ruined their day. She's not even actively trying anymore. The teacher in me hears, why does this matter? The Greeks loved connecting their myths together. Nothing exists in isolation. Every monster has a parent. Every hero fights something connected to another story. Everything links together. It's the world's first Marvel universe, which means by introducing Echidna, we're basically introducing half of the villains in the next 10 episodes. And unfortunately for our heroes, we're only getting started.